Great. So our topic is advising your clients on a growth-oriented approach to improving their businesses. And as we said, Prof Dennis Dzansi is with us in the room. This CPD event is for us as practitioners to learn and apply to our work. So let's start off, Prof, with a poll that participants can take part in. The poll question is: what statement describes the mindset of most of your clients? So obviously we can't go individually, but most of them. Do they see growth potential and understand how to realize it? Do they see the potential but are struggling to make the shifts needed? Are they happy with the current situation? Are they not seeing much growth potential? Do they never see growth potential, or are they stuck and always complaining? So how would you describe most of your clients? If you on the computer and you don't see the window coming up, it may be hidden behind some other windows. So just close all those extra windows on your screen and you should be able to see the poll window coming up. If you're on your phone and it doesn't open automatically, you may just have to swipe once or twice to get to the poll. And I see people are voting there. So what statement describes most of your clients? And as it is going at the moment, they're seeing growth potential but struggling to make the needed shifts is kind of way ahead. So there's 2/3 of us in the room, and then there are quite a few that's saying not seeing much growth potential too. So we'll keep the poll open for another few seconds so you can vote, and then we're going to say sort of close to a minute of time passed for voting, so we're going to close it just now. Let's end the poll. Well, I see there's still some people voting. So maybe you're just finding the button now. So if you want to vote, vote quickly. We're going to end the poll now. Okay, so we can share the results with everyone. By far, 2/3 of us have clients that are seeing growth potential, but they are struggling to make the needed shifts. So that is good to know, that there's that sense of wanting to grow and needing to grow. And then there are quite a few, about a quarter of us in the room, that are saying that they're not seeing much growth potential. So it may be the environment that we're operating in that's influencing that, specifically, sort of due to the pandemic and, sort of the slowness of the economy. That may influence people, of course, too. But it is great to see that a lot of our clients that we work with are seeing growth potential, and our job, of course, is then to help them in overcoming those things that they're struggling with. So that looks interesting. Prof, if you want to unmute, then we can bring you into the discussion. What do you make of that poll result, Prof?
It's good morning once more. It's interesting seeing that many realize the importance of growth, or at least see growth potential is encouraging. A few see the potential, only very few, about 5%, and do understand it. So this event is timely for such people. And also the fact that a good majority, 62%, at least realize the importance of growth is encouraging. What we need to do is really to show them or advise them on how they can attain that growth. The 5% that say they are happy with their current status tells me that they are those who just want to remain small. So there is nothing strange about that. Some want to remain as they are. But I'm happy that only a few are thinking so, because in South Africa now, we need those that are entrepreneurially minded. And one of the cornerstones of entrepreneurial minded business person is the one that sees growth as key. So it's an interesting poll.
Yeah, great. So Prof, you've got some ideas to share with us as to start off the discussion, and then we'll bring in our attendees to participate in the discussion too. So if I can hand over the floor to you.
You mean to me?
Yes, so Carl will help you along with the slide share. And then you can guide us through the value that you want to offer us today.
Okay. Good morning again. In Africa, we greet every time we have to do anything, so it's not strange that I keep greeting. Today's theme is about advising our clients on growth-oriented approach to improving their businesses. As I said earlier, growth is one of the cornerstones of an entrepreneurial business. Let me digress a bit to lay the foundation for the presentation. I'm not sure how many people have heard of Timmons. He's one of the gurus of entrepreneurship. And he identified the difference between entrepreneurial small business and a normal small business as one that has growth, innovation, and strategic objectives as the one that is really entrepreneurial. When any of those three elements are missing, then we can only refer to that type of business as small business. We do also know that whether entrepreneurial or just ordinary business, small business, they all contribute. But research has shown that those that are entrepreneurially minded are the ones who really make significant contribution, because through growth, they are able to improve or create more jobs for people to get employed, and by that enrich society at large. So it is important that growth features well in all our business advising. Now, if I had a client that I need to advise on growth, the first thing I will do is to let that client understand what growth is. We shouldn't assume that once they mention growth, they know what it really means. So I'll start by telling the client the nature of business growth. What is it? For instance, what does it really mean? In my simple opinion or humble opinion, it's when a person or a business person seeks additional options for more profit or to expand the business, then we say that the person is looking for growth. And growth becomes very important because of the competitive business environment, which means that survival is key. And to survive, you must either consolidate or grow. But when you consolidate, you remain as is. In other words, literally, it's like being stagnant, and a strong current can blow you away. But having said that, growth creates many opportunities, but undertaking growth is never easy. For instance, research has shown that 1% of all small businesses that start worldwide, only 1% make it into multi-dollar business, like $250 million, whilst even a smaller number reach $1 billion status. That shows us that pursuing the path of growth is not easy. If I may have the next slide, please. Now, why is business growth important? There are many, but I chose two just to illustrate the importance of growth. By that, you are able to cement a large enough market position. And also, it will help the business increase profitability and, of course, liquidity. And we know cash is the king of any business. So those are some of the important reasons, but there are a whole lot of them, and you are free to mention some. I'm sure that when we read the discussion stage, we are going to talk about all this. So we can move on. Next slide. Yeah. Then now, when I meet my client, I will also try to make them understand what drives a business growth. They need to know this so that they will be able to assess themselves and their businesses to see whether do they really need to grow or not. Remember, it's a choice either to grow or not to grow. And to grow requires certain things to be in place. One of them is motivation and the ability of the owner to drive. So as a business advisor, you will need to advise and also be able to help them assess their own strengths and weaknesses as far as motivation, whether do they have a strategy that prioritizes growth. Because like I said, the two options, either to grow, remains stagnant. If the person chooses to remain as is, then he or she is not prioritizing growth. But if that person looks forward to grow beyond what it is, then the person has prioritized growth. And you need to let them know that this prioritization is important. Otherwise, it becomes frustrating. And of course, the processes and infrastructure to facilitate growth needs to be there. So as a business advisor, one key thing you need to do is to remind the client of the needs of those things and whether they have enough funding or they will be able to access funding to make all this possible. Because without funding, it's going to be near impossible to undertake a growth path. So these are the key elements that I feel needs to be discussed with the client to lay the groundwork for the actual strategies that we will later on look at. Can we go to the next slide, please? Having let them understand what growth is, it is important that you let clients understand the implications, the pros and the cons, before engaging on that path. Otherwise, the client will come back to tell you that, oh, I did not know that this is what it entails. And so literally implying that you are misleading him or her. So it's important to conscientize them to understand that, one, the advantages are quite numerous, but so also are the pitfalls, or what we call the risks. Some of the advantages that one can easily think of is that by growing, you become larger. And in economics, we have something called economies of scale, where large-scale production, for instance, will enable you to make more profit and even become more competitive than your neighbor because you control certain resources that you can manipulate to even kick or block competitors out of the market. And of course, once you decide to grow, you are going to look beyond your borders. And that is where more opportunities will be there for you to exploit. It brings more customers by expansion. If you were operating in Bloemfontein and now because you are growth-minded, you want to go to Joburg also, add Cape Town and so on. It only means more customers, and more customers means what? More sales, all things being equal, and therefore greater profits. Next slide. So these are the positive implications. Now the next slide will show us what the negatives are, and they are quite many. The first one is the increased capital requirement. You cannot do anything without money or capital. So you need to let your client know very well in advance that it will require those things. And of course, once you are committing money to purchasing new facilities and so on, it may lead to cash shortage, which implies needing to borrow for expansion. Does the client have those sources to borrow? You may even have to go on to explain to the client where and how that can be done. And of course, one key issue is a compromised quality of products or services. When you decide to go big, a lot of productivity takes place. Quality issues become a big problem. Some of them is precisely because you delegate some of your managerial duties or even operational duties, and then you know, an employee may never do the work the way you want to, and it could lead to defects and so on, which could lead to customer dissatisfaction. You will need new staff for new locations and so on. And the greatest problems is not about the machinery or whatever, it is the human problem. Like you may be given more responsibilities to your HR manager or marketing manager now. And as a result, the person may feel overloaded, leading to low morale, low productivity, and so on, and turnover. I rather quit here and look for a comfort zone than stay with you. So basically, those are the disadvantages that we may encounter.
Great. So that's a prelude to us discussing the growth paths that are possible and the guidance we can give our clients in adopting different kinds of growth paths. But let's hear from the people in the room. So we're all practitioners busy out there connecting with our customers and finding ways that work, some better than others. So if you can type in the text chat what you find works best in terms of the clients that you work with in helping them to adopt growth thinking. How do you support your clients best? What works for you in creating the growth thinking that can move your clients forward in not of course only adopting the thinking towards growth and looking for those opportunities, but then tackling those challenges that you mentioned. Most of us, 2/3 that voted in the poll earlier on, saying that, you know, sort of our clients are seeing growth potential, but they're getting stuck in, or they're finding it challenging to overcome certain stumbling blocks in the way of getting towards that growth. So if you haven't found the text chat button, it's sitting there on the bar at the bottom of your Zoom window, or if you're on your phone, just tap on the window and on the screen, and it should help you to open the text chat, and then we can see what people in the room are saying, what works for you. I don't necessarily want to just pick, they're quite experienced people in the room. So Rick, true to your reputation as the first one to respond, thank you for that. So Rick is talking about lifestyle business clients. They just want to stay as they are. They're not necessarily wanting to adopt a growth path. In fact, a growth path would mean headaches that they don't want. Rina is talking about a results-based approach. So I wonder, Rina, if we can quickly, if you wouldn't mind just explaining what you mean by a results-based approach, if I can allow you to talk. If you are ready to talk, if you're not, we will know that soon. Rina, what do you mean by a results-based approach? You may talk. Did Rina fall off the call now? It looks like it. Sorry for picking on you like that. I'm not sure if we scared you off. Guy says sell glass is half full, not half empty. So yes, so the approach of starting off with what you have and acknowledging that, it's a good way of doing that. Thanks, Guy. Lazarus is saying, for me, it is understanding and knowing what the key drivers for their businesses are. If we know the drivers, we know how to influence growth, or at least know what is stopping it. I wonder, Lazarus, if you would like to share with us, how do you determine, how do you get to consensus with your clients in terms of understanding those drivers? Would you mind opening your microphone just to explain that to us quickly, Lazarus? You might, Lazarus.
Okay, sorry, say that question again. You said
so you talk about finding the key drivers and agreeing with your clients. How do you get to the point that you and your client are on the same page in terms of what those key drivers are?
Yeah, for me it's by discussion, right? I think having these touch points where you chat with the client, sometimes even having like a no agenda meeting, right? And sometimes it's by asking them, where they're feeling pain in their business and how this pain is manifesting in the business. And once you understand this, you're able to pick up the key drivers. They may not be able to know what the key drivers are themselves, but by asking these questions, you get to understand what these key drivers are. If that's not an option, the other thing is to just understand the kind of business they're running. Is it a consultancy? Is it a rental business? Is it a service business? And what do you know in general to be the drivers of these businesses? And then once you know that, then you start to ask questions about how these drivers are working in the business. For example, if it's a consultants like most of our businesses are, we know that the key driver could be capacity, which is driven by our time, right? And so if we understand that, then we know how to influence everything else.
Yeah, great. So if you don't mind just staying, don't unmute yourself yet, because I see Mpho says that there's some challenges in convincing clients to take on the advice then. So maybe the two of you can compare notes quickly, so Mpho, if let's allow you to, there's quite a few Mphos, we must allow the right one to speak. Those challenges, and perhaps Lazarus, in his way of discussing it with his clients, have come some solutions for you. What are those challenges, Mpho?
Morning, how are you? Can you hear me?
We're great, we can hear you, yes.
Yes, I mean, clients tend to dictate what they want from a business advisor, and if you don't give them what they want, they tend to ignore certain things. I mean, for example, I started my business as a consulting business, but I had to add a component of financial assistance to use it as a leverage to force my clients to accept my advice, or the solutions that I give them. I mean, typically, for example, 3 months ago, I have another client who I can see they have a growth potential, and I tell them what to do and what will happen if they continue on a growth trajectory without addressing certain issues. For example, productivity issues, where they are going out there to get more orders to deliver, but they don't have enough capacity to deliver on those orders. And you have issues where the productivity of their factory does not necessarily match the sales or the invoicing that they make. So there's a disconnect between what they have to pay their people and what they invoicing the client. If they continue remunerating their staff, it makes them non-profitable. But my story was, I told the client 3 months ago what will happen in a month's time if they grow without implementing those things. And what happened in a month, exactly that I mentioned happened. But what I appreciated is that then the client went on and implemented those advices that I had recommended. But because I also fund the client, so I have conditions to say, if you don't do this, I'm not going to continue funding you as well. So
okay, so there's a bit of a different power relationship there between you and the client.
So as a pure consultant, I find it difficult in terms of the power relations. And what I do, because I advise small businesses, it's difficult for them to afford the fees that I charge. And the only way for me to make money is if they grow, because with my funding, I have a fee that is associated with profitability. And if they stay small, it means my fees are small. So it is in my best interest to advise them to grow so that I can also earn a higher fee as well. But what I was just saying is that purely by just telling the clients what to do to solve their future problems, they tend to focus on today's problems, and they don't listen about potential problems that will come tomorrow. But that's my experience.
No, thank you for that, Paul. So I also see that we not commented there on the capacity, you know, sort of. So that's part of, I suppose, of that discussion, you know, sort of to have around what the capacity is, and the knowledge's comment there on risks and understanding the risks. So, Prof, if we move on to you, you know, sort of you can present to us perhaps what you have around the different growth paths, and maybe we can take these things into account there, you know, sort of. Emmanuel will come to you. I see your hand is up. Laris will just mute you for a while now, and then we'll come back to you. But Prof, if you, those paths of growth, you know, considering these kind of comments too around capacity and risk that we try our clients to understand, and sometimes we battle actually to get them to be on the same page with us, because we can kind of see things that are going to unfold that they are not able to contemplate yet. So maybe if you can reflect on that too. But I know you talk about different paths of different ways of tackling this element called growth.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, let me first comment on something. You know, a friend of mine who is a pastor tells me that when he goes to Zululand to preach, he knows which part of the Bible to use. And when he goes to the Sutus, he knows. I can give you the laughing part of it, but let's reserve it for the end and I will explain it to you. I'm just trying to say that in such cases, you need to be flexible in how you convince your clients. Anyway, now that the foundation has been laid for them to understand what they need to have, and also the understanding they need to have appreciation for the pitfalls, the next step is to provide them some guidance on the various strategies or options that are available to pursue this kind of a journey. If we can go to growth options. Yeah, there are many ways academics and practitioners categorize these options, but two broad ones that I've taken here is the organic versus the rapid growth options that I will discuss in the subsequent slides. So, okay, the first one is the organic growth. By organic growth, we simply mean what you are doing already, but in a different way. It takes longer, but it's safer. It's basically about doing more of what you already are good at. The disadvantage is that it takes more time to develop capabilities to manage expansion because you are using what is there already. But there are various paths that you can use in this organic one. The most appealing to me is the one which uses the analogy of the ladder, the step ladder, where you proceed from the bottom up to the top. The lower level carries low risk. And low risk, of course, means low return. And as you go the steps, depending upon the choice, the risk becomes higher and the returns becomes higher. That way, you are able to manage risk properly at the same time and sufficient returns without trying to walk before you can crawl. Next slide, please. Now, there are various organic strategies and many are familiar with you. Only that you may not know that it can be classified as such. The first one is the market penetration, which carries the least risk. It's about selling more of your current products to current customers. In other words, trying to stimulate demand from your existing customers. Then, of course, market development, where you sell more of your current products to new markets. And alternative channels, for instance, is about pursuing customers in a different way. Product development option means developing new products to sell to mostly your existing customers. Whereas the last one, new products for new customers, is the most risky because it carries a lot of financial implications, research and development, and also trying to sell to new customers that you may not know very well. So these are what we call the organic growth strategies or options that you can present to your client to choose. And then, of course, the second one, which falls under rapid growth, means that growth will be very rapid. So also is the return. But there are problems associated with rapid growth. That is, do you have the capacity to manage rapid growth? It involves high risk by high risk returns, including cash flow shortages, operational inefficiencies, and so on. And it can be achieved either through integration or diversification. These are, again, market penetration strategies that we know. Next slide, then I will explain it better. By integration, there are basically two, either horizontal or vertical. The horizontal approach is you buy a competing business. That way, you are also able to eliminate that competitor whilst you acquire his or her clients. The next one, which is the vertical integration, can either be backwards or forwards. And by backward integration, we mean that you look for your suppliers and you can buy them either through various means so that you control the supply chain, which will again enable you to expand and also have reliable supply of goods and services. That way, if you get more customers who are demanding more, you are able to supply them quicker than if you were to rely on a supplier. And then forward integration simply means buying components or even total companies that are part of your distribution channel. For instance, if VW decides to come to Bloemfontein to buy this dealership, that way they are practicing what is called forward integration. So all these strategies are there, but the question is, has the client got the capacity? Like was mentioned by the last speaker. They want to go into something without really having the capacity, and that is the biggest problem. So I'm glad that some want to assist them in acquiring this thing. By diversification, it simply means the last one, you move into a new unrelated product or service. And this is quite risky. It was practiced in years ago. A few do so, but currently it's not one of the preferred options. They will rather remain doing what they know better in a related field than completely going into unrelated fields. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, what I want all of us to know is that growth is never in a vacuum. It depends on the market, the volatility and everything, the changes that occur. And so any growth that path that you want to take must be in response to the market feedback that you get, meaning you must the clients must conduct regular market research. And that is where you, the business advisor can come in, because these clients do not have the capacity to do that. But above all that, we are in a customer era where the customer is the king. So as a business advisor, you need really to advise your clients to develop a customer orientation where they look at everything they do from a customer perspective. What will suit them? What price can they afford? And so on. And to get to customers, these days, you need social media. And you also need networking. That way, you need to advise them to use social media as well as networking so that they can get, for instance, sources of finance and so on. And those businesses shouldn't think they are too small. They should try to host events. And that way, they will be able to attract customers. But there is something important we've been hearing, social responsibility, social investment. It simply means giving back to your community. When you do that, you get a license to operate. I usually use the case of a funeral parlor owner. Normally in our local communities, we frown on them. We think they are multi people who will kill. But when you engage that kind of business owner is able to contribute to community welfare and so on, the society there will see them as a normal business, and they will gladly accept them to operate. But when you do all these things, make sure you always measure which one works for you, because these approaches that I've mentioned depends on the individual's abilities and the circumstances. So measure and see whether is it working. And if it's not working, adopt another strategy. Thank you. I think this ends my presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof Dennis. So we can put your contact details that you had there in the text chat too. So if someone wants to reach out to you, they can do so. We'll continue the discussion. We are looking at actually expanding our CPD event with 15 minutes in the future. I think today we still set to finish half past with the CPD side, so we can move on to IBASA, but maybe in the future you can expect us maybe to add 15 minutes so that there's more time for us to reflect and for our community to participate too. So let's there's some stuff happening in the text chat. There's a question that we can address and so on, but let's start off by asking another poll question so we can get a sense of how prepared we think we are to support our clients in whether it is a growth, rapid growth process or organic growth process. Of course, the nature of the businesses that we support may direct that, you know, sort of the rapid growth process seems to be quite a process where the capacity of the business will be stretched. So there's the poll coming up. If you can vote on that. Do you feel equipped to lead your clients towards growth mindset? And then, of course, organic growth is perhaps less risky, perhaps not as fast, of course, but based on the current business activities and allowing the business to take steps, whether it is through market penetration, through market development, through creating alternative channels, through product development, or through reaching new customers with new products. You know, sort of that organic growth, of course, would be slower than a more proactive way of doing so. But are we equipped to support our customers in that? So let's see what you're saying. It's a good practice to give people about a minute to respond. So if you want to respond quickly, we're going to close the poll just now. There's still one or two of us voting. So gone. We're going to end the poll, and then we can share the results with everyone. It seems that most of us feel, close to half of us, that we are to a large degree prepared, and about 40% of us say, yes, we are most definitely prepared. So we feel that we can support our clients. We are equipped. It's only 15% of us that say yes, somewhat. No one feels totally unprepared. So perhaps we can share some of that preparedness that we feel we have in supporting our clients. And kind of remember, we are recording this and we're putting it onto the IBASA website too as a resource for other business advisors to see in the future. So what we have found that works for us, we can share with others. Prof, one of the elements that you mentioned there, if I can come to you in terms of the question that's in the Q&A, thanks Guy Harris for posting your question there around financing and to the changing financing landscape and less financing perhaps being available, or the kind of financing being available perhaps not always being so accessible to people. So one of those elements is finance, that when you speak about growth, specifically if you're going to embark on a rapid growth path. So in an environment, Prof, you say the environment dictates too, and we must respond to the environment. In an environment where finance is not that easily acquired, how can we help our clients better to still go on a growth path, considering that they may battle to get funds to fund that growth path?
Okay, I'm glad the last one speaker mentioned how he has also diverged into financing. So I think it's one of the areas we can explore, because we know that finance is key to any business expansion. And as advisors, we tend to be more credible before the banks, the institutions, and so on. So we could be brokers, finance brokers for our clients. I think that was a smart strategy that was adopted by this guy.
Yeah, great. And
considering
Paul,
that,
feel free to come into the discussion too, if you wish. Sir. Sorry, Prof, I interrupted you.
No, I was saying that, it will be normal for us to refer them to IDC, these development corporations, but really it doesn't help. So if we can come in as the middleman, it will be very useful. So I think colleagues should exploit or explore that possibility of adding financing to their portfolios.
Yeah, great. Paul, would you like to make a comment in that regard?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention something that I think during the presentation, Prof touched on the risks, and in most cases, clients don't have a high risk appetite, and that can derail them or prevent them from realizing growth potential. So with everything that is currently transpiring, everyone is playing safe because it's a fear of if I take the next step, what's going to happen. But we need to get to a point where we convince our clients to take the risk, but do so with a proper plan in place, so that you can be able to navigate through the risks, potential risks that one might come across along the way. And another issue, I appreciate what the other Mpo mentioned about, partnering with the with his client. And you don't see that in most cases. Part of growth, it's growing with your clients. If you want to grow alone, then you're being selfish. So for him to have identified that opportunity of saying, you know what, when you grow, I grow, and seeing that opportunity that it's not just about me alone, but it's about us growing together. That it's something that all of us can take and implement, because it says that we are stronger as a unity than when you're trying to do it in isolation or as just one individual. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that as consultant or advisors, we need to see how we can start implementing that approach of saying, we realize that you're not good in this aspect. Like Prof said, you might be having a bad credit record. How about I come on board and assist you, because you have a good idea, you have the equipment to get the job done. It's just that from a credit perspective or compliance perspective, that is where it is your weakest link. And then I'll come on board and assist you in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, you covered quite a few points there. You started off talking about the risk and understanding the risk And I saw that knowledge that post in the text chat around that knowledge. What is your take on risk and helping your customers and your clients to understand the risks they're taking?
Good afternoon to everyone. I would say, most small businesses, I've got a few customers which I do help. My strategy actually is was I've got experience in supply chain. So mostly I have been helping businesses which are in line with my experience. So really the risk in supply chain and logistics is to do with, when it comes to growth, it's to do with the investment. When it's, for example, if it's a logistic company growing from one vehicle to a second vehicle, customers tend to avoid the risk of having to share the management or to share the ownership of the business. So at the end of the day, they feel it's too risky to have someone get involved in their financial planning. They feel it's not safe for them to get a second partner to invest in that business. So what I usually do is, I tell them, if you bring in a second partner, right? When you've got two vehicles, when you go out there marketing your business, the customer you're going to sell yourselves to, they believe you've got capability. So there's one problem with another vehicle, you've got capability to do a recovery when there's a breakdown, for example. So basically, like, my success on that side is because of experience, and I give them the advantages of having a second hand to help in that line of business. So the risk is always there. Then I always tell them the positive side of having to grow, to having the capability, the financial capability to cover in case of an emergency in terms of supply chain. Say there's a few. I think I've got two guys who do purchasing and supply. They import from China. I also tell them, in case there's risk in exchange rates, there's risk in delays in shipping. So you should be able to have financial capability to cover those shortfalls when you need to supply your customers. So basically, I've got yes, a problem in terms of risk. Explaining the risk to the customers in terms of growth, but they somehow understand me because I've been there before. So that's how I can explain the way I was mentioning the risk side of my side.
Very important points there, knowledge. Prof, maybe you've got some pointers for us in how we support our customers to understand the risks they're taking and then to plan for those risks.
Yes, risk is everywhere. Even if you decide not to take risk, it's itself risky. It's just that some people, by nature, they are born risk averse. And when they are such, they need some confidence. You can only help such people to a certain extent. But usually too, you will find that most people who will enter business are not so risk averse. It's just that they don't have knowledge on how they can manage risk. So managing this risk is very important. A few travels I made to Ireland, MIT, and then Finland, what some institutions do, universities and centers of entrepreneurship, is to take on these business people and buy equity in their businesses. And so in that way, risk is being shared or somehow partially transferred. So these are various options that we can sell to our clients. That's why it's important that networking and all those things come into play. Because when you network and you are discussing, even friends, business partner, associates, people you know, can share their experiences on how they've been able to manage their risks. So one task for an advisor is to be able to explain these risk management approaches to clients.
Yeah.
Because we cannot avoid risk.
Yeah, yeah. Great stuff. We are running out of time, and I know you promised your preacher friend into that story, Prof. So we want to give you time to finish that story too. But before we get maybe a last theme from our side, and Paul, I'm not sure if there's something else that you picked up that we need to cover still in terms of the theme of today, in terms of growth. But you provided us with a framework to understand that there are options, and that perhaps just the discussion of those different options around growth may unlock something with our clients, so for them to find the formula that's good for them. I think that may help. I see Emmanuel is talking about a complaint box, whether that's a good idea. I did notice, Prof, that you were mentioning measurement and feedback when you're embarking on growth. So perhaps you can comment on that. And Rina has got a hand up. We try to bring Rina in. Rina, we'll come to you just now, but perhaps, Prof, if you can first just comment about Emmanuel's question around using a complaint box or a feedback box. It doesn't need to be complaints, sometimes it's compliments too. And other considerations in terms of measurement and getting feedback when you embark on a growth path. So what can we advise our clients in that regard?
Yes, it's important to have a variety of how to measure what path you are taking on. You see, the normal thing I see in offices is more about compliments. I mean, why do you want to improve what is good? It's rather what is not working that we need to know so that we can improve. So customers or our clients should be encouraged to tell us which aspects they think we can improve on. That way, you see, you are stating something negative in a positive way by asking, what can I improve as an advisor? So indirectly, you are asking for your weakness, which they will normally not speak about, but using that word would. For instance, you know, I had to use that trick to get results from business people that I interviewed for my doctoral study. You know, owners of businesses will never tell you how much profit they make. So I had to put a first question up somewhere. What is your gross output? Those outputs, they mention it easily. Somewhere at the bottom, what do you think is your profit percentage on gross? And they give it to me. You see, the two questions are separated far away. So I just use the two and quickly calculate what real profit they've made. So we have to be very creative in getting feedback from our clients. There is no magic wand. What works for you is best. So we need to do those things.
Yeah. No, great. Thank you very much for that. So Emmanuel, feedback in different forms, key. And maybe you're right to say complaint, says the Prof, because the complaint means there's something to fix, some problem to sort out. Rina, so Paul, can we listen to Rina first before we go on to the IBASA stuff? Rina, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, hi, good afternoon. I mean, just wanted to give an outline about the results-based approach. It's been like, something that's used by monitoring and evaluation team, especially in the UNICEF and WHO. They use this for their implementation of their projects and programs. Well, we had just taken the approach and, used it for our, projects and for all the strategies, especially for growth, where it kind of involves not just, the input activity and the output of any process. It is more towards outcome and impact, where we think at the impact level, what would happen. So basically, we work out everything from the results, what we are trying to achieve. So that's the approach. It definitely involves the assumption and risk that we talked about. And in terms of measurements, we have to work out baselines and targets. There's a framework. So it's completely a framework that we have to set up, a results framework, and then work towards it. So that's the approach that we have been trying to use for our growth strategy. So a bit of an outline I just want to share.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for that. We can, when we end off, we can bring everyone into the room, just kind of to maybe share stuff and so on too. And Paul, but you've got some important information to share with us, so maybe we shall shift over to the IBASA slot now about the candidacy project and other kind of news from IBASA. So there are things for us to note as practitioners in terms of benefits through our IBASA membership and so on. And then maybe we can kind of, if people still have time, come back to things. But would you like to give us a final word, Prof, on your story and kind of just wrapping up our CPD topic of today before we go on to the IBASA stuff?
Yes, it's coincidental that we are mourning for with the Zulus, and this thing affects the Zulu. So this pastor friend tells me that, you know, you've got to speak to the clients in the appropriate language. That when he goes to the Zulus, by the way, I come originally from Ghana and from a tribe that has similar characteristics with the Zulus. We are warlike, so it's not anything derogatory. I'm saying all the coups in Ghana have emanated from my tribe. So this pastor says, when he goes to the Zulu area to preach, you pick those things that relate to war, because that is the thing that differentiates the Zulu, and they are very participative. But when he goes to the Zulus, he feels that they are a bit timid, so he talks about peace and how to be friendly and those things, and he's able to switch from one gear to the other and catch a lot of audiences. That's an analogy that as business practitioners we can use. No two clients are the same. So your approach to each of them needs to vary so that you can win their confidence. So that's the whole story about preaching.
Thank you very much for your input, Prof Dennis. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you in the future too, and helping us shape our topics that we cover through the committee, the education committee. So we do have a link there that we posted for feedback, and please do just click it. It's just not even a minute. You can do it now while the webinar is concluded, just to give us some pointers in terms of your need as a practitioner, how the CPD events can best suit and address your requirements. So that link in the text chat, webinar-feedback.the-epr.org. If you click that, then you would be able to give us the feedback. And then there's a second link. Thank you, Carl, for pasting that. That is for our next event, where we'll be talking about the budget. The budget may have happened, but the implications of the budget speech is going to be felt, including through one of the comments. Guy, your comment about the section, the VC fund tax incentive that is scrapped, you know, sort of, so those things do influence the way that we work and the options that are available for people. So we'll be looking a bit more in depth in terms of the budget and the allowances around the plans for the future, the medium term too, with some guests that are more knowledgeable than most of us on how the impact of that will be felt by us in the small business space. So click on that next webinar link to register so long if you want to, and also give us the feedback, please. So on that front, and Paul, if I can hand over to you in terms of news and updates from IBASA side.
Thank you very much, Christoph. I just wanted to highlight some of the exciting news that we wanted to share with our members. We have been awarded as one of the professional bodies that will be partnering with the Department of Economic Development in the Northwest and Services SETA to implement the Business Advisory Candidacy Program. So this, from where we are sitting as IBASA, it's an initiative that we want to implement in collaboration with our members. So it's sort of linked to everything that we have been talking about, growth strategies. So as part of making sure that we grow with our members, this platform will create an enabling environment for our members to do the impartation that is necessary to make this project a success. Just high level, the project is targeted at unemployed graduates who will be attracted into the business advisory space or sector. So it also literally speaks to the professional business advisors who are currently existing and running their SMMEs to now partner with us and make sure that the graduates or the candidates who will be participating in this process successfully graduate at the end of the program. And things that I've been saying previously since I joined IBASA, it's in line with this project. We want to get more females on board, young people on board, previously disadvantaged, the disabled people, and those marginalized communities from the rural areas. It's some of the target audiences that will be attracting and bringing into this project. So our members, I'm trusting you to really work with us in making sure that the graduate, not just, the candidates don't just graduate at the end of the day, but or hold an IBASA certificate, but they're in a better position to create a multiplier through establishing their own small micro enterprises. That is the thinking, that is the target that the approach that we want to implement. Next slide. These are just the key deliverables. Through the program, part of our members are mentors and coaches. So that's why everything that we're doing is to work with you as our members. We will need your expertise to make sure that you provide the right mentorship and coaching that will enable this candidate to successfully graduate from the program, and most importantly, successfully establish their own micro enterprises. So in a high level, this slide gives you some of the key things that will be happening. Hence I'm saying it's not just about IBASA from an organizational perspective, but it's us growing and making sure that we advance the business advisory industry and realize the potential, or make people see the potential that this industry possesses and the contribution it's making to SMME development and enhancement. Next slide. I don't want to talk much about mentorship. I've already highlighted that we'll be using our mentors and coaches from IBASA. So everything and anything that we'll be doing, all good standing members of IBASA, we'll be drawing from your expertise to assist our candidates. And again, I'll emphasize this, the key objective is to make sure that every participant or every candidate who's registered in this program, they successfully graduate and are in a position to establish their own micro enterprises at the end of the day. The next slide. This one touches on the upcoming AGM. I'm sure you must have received, some of you must have received the communication from the chairperson. We have completed the annual audit and it came out with positive results. Now the preparation, we are working hard to make sure that the preparations are on track to host a successful annual general meeting for all you members. So my plea is that make sure that you're in good standing as a member of IBASA so that you can really participate and decide who will be part of the future leadership that will definitely continue to make this organization of ours a greater organization that all young people want to associate themselves with in future. And in terms of contacts, I've given, you can contact me at md@ibasa.org.za, or because of load shedding, I've realized that some of the emails are delayed. You can also send me an email on mpomofigwe@outlook.com. At least if the one is not working, I can be able to access the information. And my mobile number is 083-993-6120. So I'm making myself available to all you, our members. Contact me, let's engage, let's make this organization of ours a greater organization that everyone wants to be associated with. That's it from me, Christoph.